Princess Aeryn of the Celestial Court had spent 3 months mocking humanity, their rusting ships, their habit of surviving just long enough to lose everything. So when Commander Elias Venn asked if she wanted to see what remained of Earth, she smiled like a queen offering mercy. She expected another dead world, another museum of failure, another reason to remind the delegation why her empire called them the Ashburn. Descendants of a species too weak to protect its cradle. Too sentimental to abandon it, too proud to admit it was gone. And Elias, calm as ever, told the pilot to descend, as if he were taking her somewhere sacred instead of shameful. Aeryn leaned back in her seat, already shaping her next insult. Certain this trip would end with them clinging to emotion and her standing victorious. She thought she was visiting a grave. She was descending toward a heartbeat. The shuttle broke through the cloud cover, and the ruins of Earth spread beneath them. Coastlines bitten apart by old floods, towers broken and half swallowed by forest. Bridges drowned in green, deserts crossing the bones of highways, and everywhere, life. Trees growing through glass, vines strangling steel, rivers cutting through streets, birds wheeling above fallen monuments. Aeryn frowned because no Imperial archive had prepared her for this. Earth was not neat in its destruction. It was wild, wounded, defiant. She saw a drowned stadium glittering with fish beneath a fractured roof. Solar arrays still turning in the wind, domes split open with orchards blooming inside them. And Elias watched her face instead of the view. As if the ruins themselves were only the first lesson, then the city appeared, and her mockery began to die. They landed in what had once been New York. The name meant nothing to Aeryn until Elias spoke it with a softness she had never heard at court. The shuttle doors opened, and wet air rushed in, carrying rain, salt, moss, and a metallic ghost of civilization. She stepped out expecting silence, but Earth was alive with sound. Insects humming in rooftop gardens, birds nesting in statues worn smooth by time, water pouring through broken tunnels into bright pools. Somewhere deep among the towers, an old signal beacon clicking every few seconds, like a machine that had forgotten who it was calling. Elias led her down avenues broken by roots and wildflowers, through the hollow ribs of buildings that once touched the clouds, and now and then he would stop to brush dirt from a sign or lift a fallen marker back into place. Not to impress her, but out of habit, out of respect. And that unsettled her, because the humans did not move through Earth like scavengers. They moved through it like descendants entering a temple. What kind of species bows to bones and calls that strength? Aeryn asked why humans preserved a dead world instead of stripping it for material. Why they left memorial sectors untouched when the metals alone could fund fleets. Elias answered without anger, which made every word land harder. He said Earth had burned, drowned, starved, and fractured, yet it had still given humanity language. Music, law, science, lullabies, jokes, burial rites, and the first dream of reaching the stars. Every colony still carried seeds from Earth's soil. Every deep-range vessel archived old Earth's skies. Every child knew names of animals extinct before their birth. Not because humans expected the past to return, but because forgetting would make them smaller than those who had suffered to send them forward. Then he knelt beside a half-buried plaque, cleaned it with his sleeve, and read the names carved there. Not rulers, not heroes. Ordinary people, medics, teachers, engineers, children. Aeryn stared at the list and felt something shift inside her, because this was not worship of conquest. This was loyalty to loss. This was not a monument to power. It was a promise to memory. Rain swept over the city, and they took shelter inside the leaning shell of a museum whose roof had collapsed long ago. Pale evening light poured through the opening above them, touching cracked glass, fossil bones, rusted satellite models, fragments of paintings behind emergency barriers, and in the center of the chamber hung the skeleton of a blue whale, suspended by cables that should have failed centuries ago and somehow still held. Aeryn looked up in silence. And Elias told her that humans had learned endurance on this world before they crossed stars. They learned hunger here, learned mercy here, learned how to rebuild after flood. Fire, plague, and war, Earth had not made them gentle. He said it had made them persistent, and persistence, over time, had become grace. Then he showed her museum logs, hand-maintained through generations, even during the collapse. When cities were failing and food was rationed, someone had still recorded water levels, stabilized archives, rescued specimens, taught children among ruins. Aeryn touched the old console and found her fingers trembling, because humanity no longer looked like a species that had failed its world. It looked like one that had loved it beyond reason, and love, she realized, was the force she had mistaken for weakness. At dusk, Elias brought her to the highest surviving terrace of a tower. The clouds opened just enough for sunset to pour through in bands of amber and red. Below them, the ruined city glowed, flooded streets reflecting fire. Rooftop forests swaying above shattered stone, birds circling broken antennas, the ocean moving patiently against the remains of mankind's earliest arrogance. And Aeryn asked at last why he had brought her here, why he had endured her contempt only to answer it with this. Elias rested his hands on the cracked railing and said, "Because your people think strength means standing untouched. Humans know it means being broken and choosing to build anyway. Because you call us lesser for carrying grief into the future. But grief is proof that something mattered. Because one day your empire will lose something it thinks eternal. And when that day comes, remember this, ruins are not always proof of failure. Sometimes they are proof that someone fought, suffered, loved, and left enough behind to teach the survivors how to endure." And when they returned to the shuttle, Princess Aeryn looked back at Earth and bowed her head. Not in protocol, not in politics, but in reverence. Because she finally understood the truth about humans: anyone can rule when the world is whole. Only a rare species can lose everything and still become worthy of forever.